Also, I look forward to feedback from people about topics they would want to hear about or topics they would like me to discuss or clarify. You're welcome to send in those feedback as well, or you can comment on the Facebook page and we will have a look at that so we can clarify whatever you need to, or provide you with whatever information you need, especially as we get closer to local government elections. And I recall very vividly during the 2020 general elections and even during the local government election periods of 2016 and 2018, people had a lot of questions about voting procedures, electoral procedures, what they have to do. You know, sometimes we take it for granted that we are discussing it and we are fully aware of what has to happen. But sometimes this information is not that readily accessible to people across the country. And so they look forward to programs like these where they can have reliable and accurate information. And so we want to ensure, especially as we get closer to local government elections, that people have the necessary information and the correct guidance on how to vote and where to vote and how they can make changes to their names or addresses, whatever they need to do in terms of ensuring that on election day they can cast their ballots. There are still some people who don't even know that they can vote without an ID card. And so we have to keep repeating these things so that people are aware and they have that information so they can go out there and exercise their franchise. Now, again, we have a lot to discuss this week because, in this beautiful land of Guyana, there is always some interesting development, especially over at Congress Place, where there is always some entertainment going on over there. And yesterday we had some entertainment again from the leader of the opposition, Mr. Norton, at his press conference. Nothing serious, so I don't have to spend a lot of time on Mr. Norton tonight. But like I said, it's just, Mr. Norton gets into a fight with everybody. He fights with the reporters. He's fighting with diplomats. He got into a tiff with the British High Commissioner during this week when she said that the local government elections can proceed with some safeguards, which is common sense, because all of these people, for example, the diplomats and so on who are here and who were present during the elections of 2020, they understand the electoral process. The electoral process that exists in Guyana, the electoral process, the electoral system, is not unusual or unlike any electoral process or system anywhere else in the world. They are all very similar with some minor differences. So regardless of where you go or which country you serve in as a diplomat, there will be similarities in the electoral processes. And so it's not like the election or the electoral process in Guyana is completely new to the diplomats, and therefore they have to depend on somebody like Aubrey Norton to tell them what is going on with the electoral process, or that the list is bloated, and they rely on that information. These are people with sense. These are people that understand what is happening. These are people who served in different places in the world, and they have seen all of this before. And they have seen better than Aubrey Norton before. They have seen, I'm sure, been in countries that have horror stories in terms of what took place during elections in other parts of the world. So what they're seeing here, they understand. It's a very simple process, that is the electoral system. And so Aubrey Norton telling the country and crying all over the place about a bloated voters list and calling for a clean voters list and organizing a protest every week in front of GCOM that he doesn't go out to, but have innocent people out there, his supporters, and have them in the hot sun every week protesting and making a call for a clean voters list, knowing fully well that the clean voters list that he, through the process that he is instigating about starting over fresh with a new registration, a new house-to-house registration process, he is fully aware that that cannot and will not happen because it is unconstitutional and illegal. This has already been tried and tested in the courts, and the Chief Justice has ruled on this matter definitively. So I don't know what is Aubrey Norton's end game, and I said last week, I don't know who Aubrey Norton is talking to. I don't know who any of the opposition members are talking to, because the diplomats that they want to talk to now were also here during the 2020 elections when they tried to steal the elections. And those same foreign diplomats saw the attempt. They were there in Ashman's building, they were there in GCOM building in Kingston. They saw the naked, vulgar attempt to rig the elections. I mean, these people in the coalition government will tell you that the sky is not blue. I mean, you can see something unfolding in front of you, and they will tell you with a straight face that that's not what you're seeing, that your own eyes are deceiving you. That's the type of people that we have in the opposition. So Aubrey Norton he's up in a river without a paddle. He's just sinking. So he's desperately trying to clutch at straws to survive. And I don't know how he will do so. Then we have the other coalition partner, the Alliance for Change, AFC, finally making up their mind. So we had Kathy Hughes, I think about 2 weeks ago, who said they won't be contesting the elections. Then we had Ramjatan come out and contradict what she said, and he said that he's not committing, and the party is not committing to whether they will contest the elections or not. So he was non-committant and said that Kathy Hughes was speaking on her own behalf and in her own personal capacity. But now, this week, we have confirmation that they have pulled out of the local government elections, and as they claim, because of the same nonsensical claim that Mr. Norton has, which is because of a bloated list, and they want a clean voters list. Now, we all know that this is the AFC trying to save face. So the AFC, and this is the part that is, well, I shouldn't be shocked because I know the type of people that these people are, and so they are attorneys. These are lawyers, Kemet Ramjatan and all of them, Kathy Hughes and so on, and they are making the same baseless claim about the need for a new voters list, and because the list is bloated, knowing fully well the process that we had, knowing fully well the case that was taken to court, knowing fully well that the Chief Justice pronounced on this matter. And they study the law, And they are still making this baseless claim. And in addition to that, what I find most annoying about the AFC is that they seem to have the liberty to pick and choose when to be associated with the PNC and when not to be associated with the PNC. So I don't know who their supporters are either, because they have lost all of their support. So it's very convenient for them to choose when they want to be in the coalition and when they want to be out of the coalition. So in 2015, or prior to 2015, they paraded themselves and fooled people that they are the third party and they're going to be the independent third force, and got some people to vote for them. But their intention was always to get into power. Their intention was always to get into government and to find a way to get into government as fast as possible. So in 2015, they saw that opportunity and they joined, betraying all of their principles, betraying all of their supporters, and they joined lists with the PNC and the other smaller parties so they can get into government. That was their shortcut into government. But by doing so, they betrayed the people who voted for them. They betrayed the people who wanted them to run separately. And so they joined with the PNC. But again, as I suspect is the case with the PNC, the AFC is also broke. They are also bankrupt, because when they were in government, they looked after themselves. And we're coming to some of that just now. So they look after themselves, they looked after their families, their friends, their cronies. Nobody paid attention to their party. They didn't go out there and get support to raise funds for their party so that the party can outlive their tenure in office. Because, you know, a political party is an institution. And the institution has to survive the people who make up or are a part of the institution. But nobody cared about that. Everybody was grabbing for themselves. And so even in 2018, imagine after forming a government with the PNC in 2015, they then contested local government elections on their own. So imagine being a supporter of the AFC and, you know, the so-called leaders that you're looking up to. You can't decide where they are because, you know, it's so unpredictable and spontaneous of them to do as they please and to move away from their principles. So they contested in 2018, even though they're part of a government, contested on their own in 2018 and gained less than 4% of the votes. I don't believe they won a single local authority area anywhere in the country because people were already fed up of them by the time they got to 2018 when they contested the local government elections on their own. So it was 80 local authority areas and the People's Progressive Party, Civic, won 52 of those local authority areas. I don't believe the AFC won any single local authority area that they contested anywhere in the country. So that was a very big blow to the AFC, and not only that I suspect, but I know that they do not want to see that day again. They do not want results like that again. And so they are mortally afraid, just like the APNU, afraid of going to local government elections. You know, imagine when you're in opposition, you work every day to talk to people, to convince people that you're the better choice. You make your case every day. You go out there, you meet people in the communities, and you try to convince people that you are the better person for the job and that your party is better for the job. So you look forward to elections. You are hungry for elections because you want to go out there and prove that you can garner votes and that you can garner support. And that's how you build up your party. That's how you build up the reputation of your party. Imagine being in opposition and running away from elections. What does that tell you about these people? They are not serious about being a government in waiting. When you're in opposition, you're supposed to be a government in waiting. When the People's Progressive Party Civic were in opposition, that's the way we operated. Because we knew that we had the experience, we had a vision, we had the right plans for this country, and we saw that what the AFC and the APNU coalition were doing was wrong for the country. And we saw the decline in the country, and we knew how to fix it. And so we promoted ourselves like that. And we presented our case, we presented our vision, we presented our plans to the people. And we were hungry for elections so that the people can go out there and make the right choice. Now, imagine being in opposition and running away from that. These are cowards. These are not leaders. Leaders like to be able to go out there and get support. But these are cowards, and they're running scared, and they're afraid to see what the results of these elections are. So the AFC is out. In terms of Aubrey Norton, he hasn't decided as yet what he will do for local government elections. He's running scared as well. And, just like what they've been doing all along, this track record that they have of rigging elections. Today I was looking at some old videos of victory celebrations and so on that they had just after the 2020 elections. And it's so funny how quickly their story changed, in the days just after the elections. They declared that the elections were free and fair and we had a clean elections. I'm sure a lot of people can remember Basil Williams getting into the car and saying, he don't know what's all the hullabaloo about because we had a clean elections and we won these elections. And within a matter of days, suddenly the elections were rigged and dead people voted and all these irregularities and anomalies, and remember those phrases that they used to use. But that was the same election that they claimed to win just days ago. So, with these people, it's funny with these people. I have people asking me how I manage to stay calm on the program when I start to talk about the actions of these people, their behavior in and out of government, their broken promises, the way they ripped off the Guyanese people. It's upsetting, and the way they try to steal the elections. It is upsetting, but you have to maintain your composure when you're dealing with these people, and you have to expose them. They're frauds. That's what they are. All of them are frauds, but they would prance around like they're, in Guyanese parlance would say, you're wholly more than righteous. And there is nobody who is more self-righteous than Cathy Hughes. And so, when you want to think about somebody who can really pomposet around the place, Cathy Hughes is the person that comes to mind. You know, that parades herself as this self-righteous person. You know, she walks around the place like she's this highly ethical and morally conscious individual. She has her fancy accent. I don't know if it's a British accent or an American accent, but she has this, you know, polished accent that she puts on like she's making these very important intellectual points when she stands up in Parliament to read her prepared speech. But she's corrupt. She's corrupt just like the others. And she enriched herself through her own ministry. And then to have the spunks to walk around the place, even now, you know, like she's so pure and so holy and self-righteous. But she was stealing just like everybody else. And, you know, if we can, I look at them in the newspapers, and I recall the article in the Kaichur News in 2021 where it was exposed that, you know, the company owned by Cathy Hughes received $6 million in contracts from the Ministry of Telecommunications. This was the ministry that she was the minister of. Video Mega Productions Limited received over $6 million in contracts from the ministry, which Cathy Hughes presided over. And the Kaichur News article says the documents which were seen by this publication even show Hughes in one instance appearing to have personally approved a payment with her signature as minister. These are the type of people that you have who still coming around the place and who are still parading as though they have the best interests of the people of this country at heart. These are the people who want to be elected, or these are people who want to be re-elected after they have auditioned and they have or we've already seen what they have done in government. Then we have an article from when she was in government from 2019, Starbrook News. Minister Hughes in clear breach of Integrity Act. And the Auditor General Gulsaran saying that she should resign or relinquish ties with the company of which she owns. And in that article it says, to the extent she continues to retain ownership of the company in question or an interest in it, she is in breach of the code of conduct contained in the act. So he said, alternatively, Hughes should choose to resign from her position, as the Integrity Commission Act is clear on the issue of conflict of interest, and she should divest herself of the conflict of interest. And we had many examples like this in government too, where you had right at the Ministry of Housing, you had Valerie Patterson giving her husband contracts to construct houses within her own ministry. So the Cathy Hughes, but especially the Cathy Hughes, you know, who, like I said, you know, pomposette around the place like she is the best thing and she's so above everybody else. You know, she suffers from a superiority complex where she thinks she's better than everybody else. But she has a poor track record in government. She is corrupt, just like all of them in the APNU AFC, who went in there to look after themselves and their families and their cronies and did nothing for the people of this country. And then tried to steal the elections when the people voted them out of office. Well, they tried for more than a year to avoid the elections after the passage of the no confidence motion. And, you know, while she was Minister of Telecommunications, I believe it was then, went into the hinterland community and was saying that she's delivering internet service to the Amerindian communities. When we took office and we started to visit these communities, what we found was none of these internet services were working. We found a building, small building like a hut, that they said this was the telecommunications hut or center. It was just a shell of a building with no equipment, no computers. It has one small dish within some of the communities that was not working most of the time, and you have to be either within a feet or two of the dish to get any kind of service. And that's the internet service that Cathy Hughes claimed that the APNU AFC government provided our Amerindian people when they were in government. It was a farce. They went around the place, they knocked up a shack in the Amerindian communities, claimed it was an ICT hub, was not furnished, had no equipment, and the internet service was not working. So we had to revamp that entire sector. And as you know, our Prime Minister, retired Brigadier Mark Phillips, the real brigadier, he has responsibility for that portfolio, a substantial or a substantive portfolio. Our Prime Minister is responsible for telecommunication. He holds a portfolio for energy. So he is very, very busy, very unlike the rubber stamp Moses Nagamutu and the cardboard president, David Granger. Remember when they had a rally? Imagine, this is not even in a hostile community to the APNU. This was a rally that the APNU coalition government organized. And instead of President Granger coming down and meeting people and shaking hands and taking photos, he put a cardboard in the middle of this rally for people to stand up and take photos with. I mean, so it boggles my mind that some of these things actually happened. We can't make this stuff up. If we make this, if we were to think to make these up, we would think that nobody would believe us. But it was the truth. A cardboard president, but you know, it was fitting. It was a fitting, and it resonates because he was a cardboard president in reality. So you know, that was the symbol, and I see that cardboard cutout of David Granger as the symbol of his presidency. He was missing. He was absent. He was aloof. He was unaware of what is going on. Not sure that he cared to know either. And he was drifting. All of them who made up that government, 2015 to 2020, all of them were drifting. They had no idea how to run a government. And when they were in their ministries working, they were working for themselves. They were working to look after themselves. They were working to look after their children and their friends and their family, and that's who they looked after. And even after knowing all of this, even after all of this embarrassing display of corruption, these people still walk around the place as though you can trust them and want to run for re-election. So we have to be very, very careful. We have to always be mindful of them. It is important that we are always reminded of their actions in government. You know, I said last week, and it is true, that we have short memories sometimes. And sometimes it's easy when you're accustomed So maybe for years or for generations, your family has voted a particular way, and you feel almost obligated to do the same thing, knowing, and I know this happens among different communities, because I'm in the fields and I talk to people, and sometimes I talk to young Afro-Guyanese people who say to me, all we ever knew was the PNC. Our parents voted for the PNC, our grandparents voted for the PNC. That's all we ever knew. We never examined the policies. We never examined the people. We never put them under a microscope to see or to assess for ourselves, are these the right people for the job? We didn't think about it like that. And I know, and they admit to me, that they struggle with making decisions, especially political decisions. And people ought not to shy away from politics. I can say that I was guilty of the same thing. 5 years ago or 7 years ago, I was not paying as much attention to politics either. You're busy, you're caught up with life, especially as a member of the private sector. You're hustling, as most Guyanese do. And you're not paying attention to the political climate, you're not paying attention to economic policies of the government because you're busy and your time gets consumed. But when you start to feel the decline in your country, you have to stand up and pay attention. And that's what happened with me in the 2015 to 2020 period. I realized that this country had made a very, very big mistake by electing the coalition government. And so a lot of young people then wanted to see, especially those who grew up under a PPPC government, wanted to see what a new government would bring. Would the grass be greener? Or would we have buyer's remorse? And very soon we realized it didn't even take a year, 6 months or so into their tenure in office, this country had buyer's remorse. And everybody started to complain and cry out because some of the things they did immediately into going into government was unconscionable. Like increasing their own salaries by 50 to 100% in some cases. By reversing some of the very people-centered social policies that we had existing in office when we were in government, when the PPPC was in government in the years up to 2015. When people saw programs like the housing program in decline, in disarray. Imagine reducing a ministry as important and as impactful as the Ministry of Housing and Water, reducing that to a department. A ministry that has the potential to give people a new lease on life, to empower people by making them homeowners, giving them ownership of real property, immovable property, security that they can take to the bank, to get a loan, to build a home, to provide for their children, to be part of a community, to be a homeowner, to have that certificate of title or transport that you can later on refinance and get access to a loan to start a small business or any type of business. That one certificate or that piece of paper alone, giving you ownership to your property, is such an empowering thing. And with that, you can do so much with your life. Your life starts when you get access to that. You are empowered to go on to make your own decisions. You are free. You no longer live in fear of you're living in a rental and you're afraid every day. if I'll be able to pay my rent, or if the landlord will evict me, where will I go with my kids, will I have to change schools, all of these things, giving people security, peace of mind. They took that away. Not a single new house lot or housing scheme was developed under that government, even after promising that they would deliver in the housing sector. And I always have their manifestos with me, because I don't know, they probably don't like when I pick up these manifestos, because this is Nancy's story. These manifestos are like, children's fairy tales. They sound really, really good, but completely impossible. And that is the manifestos of the APNU AFC coalition governments. So the 2015 manifesto, which is, they're out of office, so they're now going to contest the 2015 elections. And, it's a nice thick document loaded with information, lots of poetries, lots of promises, and unfulfilled, as you know. And then you have the 2020 manifesto. So they're in government, they've been in government 5 years, and they're now writing this 2020 manifesto to be re-elected. And it's less than half the size of the 2015 manifesto, because the reality hit them that we can't deliver these things here. We overpromise. We made up things, and by a fluke, we got into government. We managed to fool people and get elected into government by a fluke. And say, for argument's sake, that they won a free, fair elections by a handful of votes, when by the time they got to 2020, they don't want to overpromise anymore, because they don't want licks on the manifesto. So they made sure that the manifesto it has a lot of pictures. So less writing this time, more pictures this time. And it doesn't read like poetry this time. It's just bullet points, bullet points this time. So it's a watered down, washed up manifesto that they produced in 2020. So the 2015 one had promises like the AP and UAFC coalition government will ensure that every Guyanese has access to affordable housing beyond house lot distribution. To this end, the coalition government will introduce innovative financing for housing, including the development of mortgages as financial instruments, mortgage interest support for low and middle income groups. Can you imagine? This is a group of people that reduced the mortgage interest relief ceiling that we had by more than 50%. They reduced it. The mortgage interest relief ceiling was $30 million. When we were in government, they reduced it to $15 million, thereby disqualifying thousands and thousands of people from being able to benefit from the mortgage interest relief, which is a write-off on their taxes, their income tax returns at the end of the year. All of the interest you pay on your mortgage, you're able to claim that back as a deductible. That is an initiative that we had prior to 2015, and it was up to $30 million. We have since reinstated that. But I'm just showing you, this is just another example. And I can't go through their manifesto page by page to talk about their unfulfilled promises. But as I was on the topic of housing, I'm just demonstrating to you the type of barefaced lies that we are confronted with every time I open this manifesto. It's like a new revelation. Did they really promise that? I have to ask myself. Because not only did they not deliver on this specific promise, but that they did the opposite of some of these promises, just like this one with the mortgage interest support. So they're saying that they're going to provide mortgage interest support, and then they reduce the support that we had there by 50%. So this is the Kathy Hughes and the Ramjatan and the Nagamutu, that all of them that form part of the APNU AFC coalition government. And now we have poor Norton. Sometimes I have to sorry for Norton, because the party is in shambles. The party is bankrupt, morally, financially, intellectually, and then you have Norton there. Nobody wants to be associated with Mr. Norton. Everybody's running in the opposite direction. So I don't know where Aubrey Norton is going to find polling agents from to serve in the polling stations to protect the interests of the APNU coalition if they finally announce that they will participate in the local government elections. Because who is going to want to work for the PNC anyway? Because recall, when they raised doubts about the integrity of the elections, and during the recount process, when they made all of these wild claims about dead people voting and people who have migrated turning up at polling stations to vote, they forgot that in these 2,000 plus polling stations, that they had polling agents in every single one of these polling stations. So thereby throwing under the bus all of those 2,000 plus people that were there protecting their interests. So everybody that came into the polling station had to present their ID card. Their name was announced. There is what we call the folio that the party agents have access to, which has a colored photograph of every single elector, and hence why there is no, also why this is a safeguard. So let's say somebody comes to vote without their ID card, there's no need to panic, because the party agents have that folio there that they can refer to, and you can see a colored photograph of each and every single elector who is on that list. And you can verify that that person is in front of you. You can verify the presiding officer or the clerk who is there. The GCOM staff calls out the number of the ID card, and each party agent has the opportunity to see that number and to see the photograph of the elector who is coming to vote. And this was repeated throughout election day, and this was the process. That is why the British High Commissioner can say without fear of contradiction that there is enough safeguards, and if we were to continue with these safeguards, there's no risk of having a rigged election because of a bloated list. The people who are dead can't vote anyway because they're dead. If people are overseas, they can come back home and they can vote, because migrated people, you don't have to prove residency, and we've been through this last week. Residency is not a requirement to vote. You have to be 18 years old and over, and you have to be a citizen of Guyana, and you register to vote. So even if 4.5 years you're spending outside of Guyana and you want to return home to vote, you can. You can have a say in what goes on in your country. So there are sufficient safeguards to ensure that the elections are free and fair, and all of these safeguards were in place on election date, March 3rd, 2020, and the recount verified that it was a transparent, free, fair elections, but there were abuses. There were abuses, especially by GCOM staff, especially by the Chief Elections Officer, Lowenfield, who made many attempts to delay the announcement of the elections. We had the Mingo saga, and then once Mingo's part was over, once Mingo called out all the incorrect numbers, and Lowenfield submitted his report. Remember Lowenfield invalidated 115,000 votes. Do you remember there was a case? We had to go to court again because Lowenfield, one man, sat down and decided that 115,000 votes were invalid votes. By what mechanism, by what tests Lowenfield used and applied, I don't know. Only God in heaven knows. I don't know where Lowenfield got this idea from, where he got the authority to do that from. But one man sat down and decided that 115,000 votes are invalid and submitted a report showing a victory. This was about the third or the fifth victory. You remember?
Probably fourth.
So this was a third or fourth victory again when he submitted the report of June 13th. I remember the day very well. June 13th, when he submitted a report. Valid votes and invalid votes. And Lowenfield didn't do this for himself. Lowenfield wasn't contesting the election. He's not a candidate. He wasn't rigging the elections for himself. He was doing the bidding for the party that was in government at the time. So when they try to disassociate themselves with Lowenfield, it doesn't make sense because he's not doing this for himself. Well, sure, he got 200 acres of land at Millie's hideout, so he had interest to protect. But he's not rigging the elections for himself. He's not going to go into office. It's the people who stood to benefit from invalidating people's votes. They're the riggers. They're the thieves. They're the ones that wanted to steal the election. And they're the ones coming to you again. They're the ones who parading in opposition now and casting stone. And the infuriating part is when they talk about clean elections and democratic processes and constitutional reform. Their names cannot be associated with those words. Democracy, Norton or nobody in the PNC or AFC should talk about democracy. They are riggers. Constitutional reform, they shouldn't speak about the Constitution. They disregarded the Constitution every single day they were in office. When the Constitution said you had 90 days to call the election if the government falls on a no confidence motion, they threw that aside. Every single day they were in office, they violated the Constitution that they now preach about. We are not to be carried away with these people. We have to remember these things. We have to remember the pain they put this country through, the pain they put the people of this country through, especially during those 5 months. We had 5 years where they put a lot of people on the breadline. A lot of people lost jobs. A lot of people lost representation. The Amerindian people were severely neglected during that period. I traveled extensively in the hinterland communities during those 5 years, and I saw for myself the first-hand neglect of our Amerindian people. And that's just a portion of our population. I went into communities where we had to cut our way in. And by that I mean trees had fallen on the trail and there was no access to the community. We were going in on bikes and we had to literally cut ourselves through to get to the community. So there was no way that goods and services or anybody in government was going into those communities to serve those people. People punished, people suffered a lot during those 5 years. We have to be mindful of that. So when they come with their fancy accents now, and their nose in the air and their shoulders erect, and they want to preach about democracy and constitution and democratic elections and clean voters lists, we're not to be carried away with that. This is, again, another attempt to fool people and to get people to support them, knowing fully well that they have no good intentions for this country. And apart from their intention, they're a bunch of incompetents. Because when you listen to them in the parliament, that's when you know that these people have no ideas. And now, they're not even staying to present their ideas. Now every day is just, every time we go to parliament, they walk out of parliament. So, the one responsibility that they have to the electorate and to their constituency, which is to go there and to ensure that they present a case, that they debate us on these bills. That one responsibility that they have. We're not in parliament every day. But when we do go, we go there to do serious business. And we go there to pass laws that affect the lives of the people of our country. And we want to ensure that we pass as good a legislation as possible. And that means that both sides make contributions. And it is helpful to ensuring that robust legislation is passed and that sound laws are passed in our assembly. And that we pass our budget, it's properly scrutinized. We go there, we have the debates for 1 week. We go for the consideration of the estimates the second week. We don't shy away from any of that. We have full debates, full examination of the estimates, because we want people to see what we are doing, how government's money is being spent, how taxpayers' monies are being spent, and the opposition's job is to scrutinize that. And we don't shy away from that. But that's too much work for them. It's easier for them to go on Facebook and click live and ring a bell and make all sorts of noise and show news from all over around the world, nothing pertaining to Guyana, and full people's mind with emptiness. No solid contribution from these people. And we have to, while we talk about them and remind people of who they really are, we must also pay attention to what is happening in government. And like I said a few minutes ago, politics is part of life. It's not something we can avoid. And the government that is in power can affect your life in a very big way, either positively or negatively. And so it's very important that you make the right choice. It is very important that we vote on issues, that we don't vote on race. It is very important that you see your government, when they say that they're going to do something, they make a commitment or they make a promise, it is very important that you see the manifestation of that promise. Recently, you would have seen Cabinet give its no objection to the gas to energy project. And now we're trying to advance that project that many have started cussing before the project even got underway. But we promised to reduce electricity by 50% by 2025, and this is the project that will do this. This is the project that will see the 300 megawatt plant being built that will reduce electricity by 50%. They're not saying anything, they're quiet. That was a major announcement that I believe the Vice President spoke about that. They're quiet. They can't criticize it because there you have, again, another manifestation of a promise, and then you see the plan in motion to deliver on that commitment. And so with everything else, we have to do the same type of comparison, the same type of examination. Every time any member of our government or the president or the vice president or the prime minister makes a commitment, we ensure that that is followed up with real action to deliver on those commitments. And that's the type of government that people around the world yearn for. The type of government that they can trust, the type of government that they can rely on, and not to be carried away with narratives of ethnic discrimination and all of and inequality when we know that that is not the reality of the country that we live in. Every day we are trying to build a One Guyana. We're trying to unite this country while delivering on our transformational agenda. And recently I was reading in the newspapers about the one-stop diabetes treatment center that will be coming on stream by year end. I saw that recently in the newspapers, and that's very, very important because there are a lot of people in our country who suffer from diabetes, and that's a very important announcement for them as well. Minister Frank Anthony is a very shy individual. You know, you don't see him about a lot, but he's working to deliver in the health sector. Recently too, we had a major announcement of free CT scans. So I hope that people are paying attention to these things and ensuring that when they go to the hospital that they are not charged for a CT scan. It is free of cost. And so there you have your government ensuring that we protect our people, protect our sick, protect our vulnerable. So I believe that's all the time I have. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. It was a delight to be here. It's still not too late for you to click the share button so that people can re-watch later on. Please join me again, same time, same place next week. Have a productive week ahead. God bless you.